Hello friends, today we will be talking about the practice of Dhyan Yog or Yog associated with contemplation practices and how that helps to elevate us to the next level in our journey of attainment of moksha, nirvana, attainment of Paramatma. So Dhyan Yog, as you can make out, there are two distinct words, Dhyan or contemplation and Yog or union. So we need to first understand the definition of Yog. What is Yog? And we will keep it very short here because I will make another different lecture on what is Yog itself. But to encapsulate, Yog has three distinct characteristics. Yoga has to have a component of sannyas, which is freedom, renunciation of desires of doing things for personal sense gratification or doing things for material gains. Samatha, which is when you are doing the activity, that you have to be free from siddhi and asiddhi, success and failure. And you have to be having tyaga, which is renunciation of fruits of good action. So what kind of action should be performed? The actions that we have to perform are of yajna, dan and tap. Yajna meaning sacrifice, dan meaning charity, and tap meaning penance. Yajna is always done for things that are dan is always given for things that are beyond our needs, more than enough. What we have, if you give away, that is dan. If you give away within the basic necessities that you have to someone that is more needy, then that is sacrifice or yajna. And that can be like raising kids, sending them to good schools for tuition and not living the good standard of life or sacrificing a vacation. So that is kind of sacrifice. And dan or charity is like philanthropy, altruism. And tap is of course penance, which is purification of the lower body, lower senses for greater awareness. So those kind of things are said to be yoga, which will help to unite the Atman with the Paramatman and thereby ending the cycle of misery, Janm Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. So that is yoga. As you know, yoga has three basic subtypes that can be used because there are different paths leading to the same God. The three types are Bhakti Yoga, or the yoga of devotional service and surrender, absorbing yourself in memory of God, which is the best, easiest, quickest way of attainment of realization in Kali Yuga, or Dhyan Yog, or you can call it Dhyan Yog, which is the method of contemplation, reading of the scriptures, those kind of things. And the third is Karma Yoga, for people who are not believers in Dhyan Yoga and people who are not believing in Bhakti or a higher version than themselves leading the world, the agnostics, or even you can say people, sometimes atheists. If you're a good person doing activity without expecting any gains back, nishkam karma, that is said to be Karma Yoga. Now, we will talk about how to ascend to the level of Dhyan Yoga. In this lecture, we will talk about the lamp flame theory of Dhyan Yoga and also what happens to individuals who strive for attainment of perfection in yoga and fail. What happens to them? So three things. First, let's start with this portion of the slide. Here I talk about the MACD theory, which is the double MAC kind of picture here. The lower MAC is for the karma and the higher is for the dhyana. What does that imply? It implies that people who do not have faith and belief in a higher version, they can start with tyaga, which means they can do activities that are beneficial to people around them without expecting results. So that is called tyaga, or reactionary fruitive activities have been abandoned. The next step, when they have done their tyaga, the feel good feel is there, then they start by expanding their circle in the community. So community service, devotional services, doing langars, things of that nature, love people, feed people, serve people, that kind of service, that constitutes still karma yoga, nishkam karma, in the realm of dan and yagya, but they are still parts of karma yoga. Now once you have attained that, the next step comes to be surrender. First, you did not give anything to anyone, you did it for yourself but did not expect results. Second, you started doing more, expanded the spectrum of activities that you did. Third, you said nothing belongs to me, the power is vested in me, so I am doing the stuff, which is surrender. And then the fourth is memorization of God. So that is the way the mind works when it is ascending from a lower version to a higher version. But in the lower version, as you can see, I have labeled it as enemy. So when you are in this ignorance, tamas mode of addiction, compulsive, habitual routine, and addiction just does not mean addiction to smoking, gambling, or other vices. Addiction can be a kind of ignorance, darkness that is making us monotonous and just caught up in the routine, and years are passing by, 2018, 19, 2020, every year is just passing by, because we are knowing that we are not living the best, highest version of ourselves, but we cannot break that cyclical, compulsive cycle. So that is the ignorance addiction spectrum that most folks in this world are living in. And they have to ascend through the cycle of tyaga, service, surrender, memory absorbed in God, MIG, the MIG of Dhyan Yog. And then they go into awareness enlightenment phase. So those are the steps. And Gita very clearly says that Aru Rukshor Muner Yogam Karm Karan Muchyate, Yoga Rudasya Tasyav Shama Karan Muchyate. The novice in yoga practices begins with karma, and one who is well ridden in the activities of Nishkam Karma, for him, he is a perfectionist in yoga, an expert. For him, Dhyan Yoga is the right. So you have to ask that question, whether you should start right away from Dhyan Yoga, or you have to do love people, serve people, feed people, those kind of community service and activities that are making you feel like you're a good person, to give it a good boost to the Rajasic ego to go to the higher versions. So you are basically converting the mind, which is enemy and is conspiring against your better intellect, to a frenemy, where it becomes sometimes friend and sometimes enemy, to a friend in Dhyan Yoga. So that is the cycle that has to be ascended. Now let's come to the lamp flame theory. There's a very beautiful verse, verse 19 in the 6th chapter of Dhyan Yoga, that says, Yogi yunjat satat atmanam rahsi sthita ekaki yat chittatma nirashir parigriha. Well, not that verse, but this one. Yatha dipo nivathasto nengte supamasprita yogino yat chittasi inte yogam atmana. Which means, yatha dipo nivathasto, just like a lamp light will lie still, the flame will be very fixed and straight when there is no prevailing winds that are distracting, swaying and flickering the flame. Similarly, a mind that is fixed in God will attain the nirvana or the moksha once it is ridden of all the distracting elements. So you can, and that is why one of the reasons why we come and take a birth in this human form is because we can use the lower faculties of the Prakriti, things like the body, the senses, the mind, the intellect, to go to the next higher version of ourselves in the Sukshma Sharir and the Karan Sharir, in which we can unite the Atman with the Paramatman, and that is Yoga. So the first level that we have to conquer is the lamp itself. The lamp signifies the body, which is made up of very coarse elements, just like made of clay. Now, the whole point is to create a non-flickering, steady flame, the flame of focus. And that you can only create in Dhyan Yoga by getting rid of the distractions, the temptations, the deviations, detours that the mind, intellect, and other faculties make. So let's start with the 4 levels of distractions. The first level at the body, the second at the senses, the third at the mind, and the fourth at the intellect. At the body, it is made up of clay, earth element. At the senses, it's made up of the water or the oil of the lamp element. At the wind, it is made up of the mind or the desire constellation. And at the intellect, it is made up of the expectation element, the fire. And then the fire burns straight and we are hitting the flame of focus into nirvana or moksha. So you have to make sure that all the lower faculties are coordinating with each other to help us ascend to the highest level. So body, at the body level, you have to have a straight posture in your Dhyan Yoga. So you should be sitting straight. The spine, the head and the neck, they have to be in a straight line. And then the concentration is built up. Also, the food and the sleep, they have to be yuktahar viharasya yukcheshtasya karmsu yuk swapna bodhasya yoga bhavati dukha. Not too much of food, not too much of sleep. Not too little of food, not too little of sleep. So moderation of food and sleep with the erect posture. And it talks about sitting straight with concentration at the tip of the nose, sitting on the kusha grass, deer skin and a cloth. Well, you can just sit on a firm surface with a straight posture, and Padmasana or any folded position, that would be great if you don't have any arthritis problems. But basically it has to be an erect posture with moderation in food and sleep to control the lamp, the body element. Come next to the senses. Senses, because body is the Muladhara, senses is more at the Swadhisthana or the sensual pleasure level, creation, procreation. It is looking for the Vishaya. Vishaya vinivartante nirahasya dena rasvarjam rasopasya param dishta nivarte. So Vishayas are the objects of sensual gratification. It can be the ligands to the senses. So things like beautiful sight, beautiful tasting food, wine, beautiful music that you hear, or the sense of touch, the sense of smell. Those 5 things are the senses. So there has to be detachment from personal sense gratification, because that will just bring you lower and lower and convert the mind into an enemy. So you cannot surpass that enemy zone into the friend zone unless you have a complete vairagya or detachment from the vishayas or the objects of sensual gratification, because that is the purification of the oil in the lamp. You have a pure clay forming the lamp, you have a pure oil which is very combustible. Okay, what is the third thing needed for light? The third thing needed is the wick of the lamp, or I should say absence of detracting wind. Let's talk about the wind first. The wind of desires, that's what's broiling in the mind all the time. I have to get this thing done, I want more women, gold, I want more success, I want to be more praised for my activities, the ego flaring up. So basically mind winds have to be calmed down. So vairagya from the desires can be fear, anxiety, can be a positive desire, what we call the p-pets, the positive polarity emotion thoughts, or the p-nets, negative polarity emotion thoughts, n-pets. So basically, whether it's anxiety, there is worry, there is depression, or the positive polarity of lust, anger and greed. These things are usually affected by an expectation, the expectation of some rewards or sensual gratification in the Vishayas. And you know, Krishna has always said that among the senses, I am the mind. Indrani paranyavande paramana manasastu parabuddhaya buddhe partastu sa. So above the senses is the mind, above the mind is the intellect. So if you want to control the Vishaya senses, you have to control the mind. The mind is higher, so it can control the senses. That's how the hierarchy works. So control of the desires through practice of detachment. We will talk about it, vairagya. So there is no wind that is flickering the wick, because the wick needs to be steady for the fire to be steady. So you have to have no distraction from the winds of desire, emotions, thoughts, worry, anxiety. The last is the wick. The cotton wick has to be pure. That is the wick of intellect that is dipping in the oil of the senses, which is devoid of sensual gratification. So, the wick represents the intellect. We talked about the body, senses, mind. Fourth is the intellect. That is the highest level of mental faculties provided by the material modes of nature, Prakriti. I shouldn't say material mode of nature, I should say Prakriti, to help us elevate to the understanding of God. So, intellect should be not ridden with expectations. When you have certain activities, worrying about siddhi, success, failure, worrying about whether we will be rewarded for those activities. Karmanyavadhikarasti ma phaleshu kadachana ma karm phal hetu bhur marte sangosto karmani. You are only attending to the actions and not to the results, karm phal. So that getting rid of is getting rid of expectations. To purify the wick, it remains the straight. So once you have a pure body that is free of too much of food and sleep and has the correct posture, once you have the pure oil that is free of the vishayas or the objects of sensual gratification, once you don't have this distracting winds of desire, fear, anger, lust, those kind of things, and once you have the pure cotton wick which is free of expectations for the activities that you undertook, you will be able to remove all the distractions, and then the fire, the flame focus of fire will burn bright and erect, and then it will reach the self-realization of the Atman, seeing, and then it will rejoice in the beauty of the Atman. So that is the lamp flame theory, and you have to understand how do we work on this level. Well, he has clearly said that it's very hard. Bandhuratmanastasya atma atma yatanatmanastu shatrute vartat atma shatruvat. Whose mind is friend, he has gained everything. Whose mind is enemy, he has lost everything. But Arjuna has asked him, like, how do you control the mind? And I've talked about it through Abhyasa and Vairagya. I just want to touch a little bit more about it. In contemplation, in the earlier stages, you have to develop strength in the faculties of Vairagya, which means you have to constantly reprimand and show yourself and repeat to yourself, affirm to yourself the futility of desires and how the mind has submerged you and caused losses. 7 seconds of pleasures have led to years of punitive results. So it's very important to be castigating the 1, 2, 3, 4. Too much of eating, sleeping, too much of sensual gratification, too much of desires, and too much of expectations. Constantly castigate all 4 of them in your dhyana. And then slowly, once you have lost all those distractions, then you can grow the focus on the flame of the fire, which is abhyasa. Now, there's also a question, what happens to individuals when they cannot attain Dhyan Yog, when they are yato yato nischarati manas chanchalam sam tatasato niyamya tadatmanya vasham nayat. Wherever the mind is running away, bring it back. But if you bring it back, it still goes away. So you're not succeeding in the practice of Dhyan Yoga. And say we died in the process, we never attained nirvana. What happens to those individuals? Arjuna is kind of worried, like Ram Milina Maya. Neither we attained God, not girls. So what's the use? So Krishna tells him that प्राप्य पुण्य कृताम लोकानुषित्वा शाश्वती समाज सूची नाम श्रीमताम गेहे योग भ्रष्टो अभिजायते अथवा योगी नामे कुले भवति धीमताम एतद्धि जन्मे योगे दृशम दुर्लभ yoge disham. So which means that once he has accumulated those good karmas, because he still had some expectations, so he goes to the bhog lokas, the lokas where he can get the gratification. And once he has met all the gratification, he comes back to the earth and he goes back to the house of Suchinam or Shrimatam. Suchinam is the pious people and Shrimatam are the prosperous people. So those people who are born in the house of people who have high spiritual aspirations, and they are very sanctified, pure people in terms of their mental faculties and worshipping and offerings and dan, those kind of things. So that is Suchinam. So if your abhyasa was weak, you're not able to focus a lot, then you are born in the house of Shuchinam, which are the pious people. So you will be in the right gunas, influencing association of sattva. Everybody in the family is reading Bhagavad Gita in the morning. You also read Bhagavad Gita. How can you read like commando comics or something like that? So you are kind of ingrained and primed and blueprinted into that activity. You didn't have a choice. So that's the beauty of material mode of nature of sattva. So that's why if your abhyasa is weak, be born as a Suchinam. If your Vairagya is weak, you are still having hankering, craving, holding on to the desires, material wealth, ambition to become a successful president of America or lawyer, engineer, whatever, then you will be going in the house of Srimatam, which is the prosperous people. You will have good education, you will have a luxurious life, so you will not have to crave these things anymore. Because the whole point is to burn the vasanas or the tendencies that were remaining, and those will be met in the next life, so that you don't have a hankering for them. So the cycle of hankering should get smaller and smaller. Your baggage should get smaller and smaller. So this Louis Vuitton baggage of expectations and desires that we bring, we have to keep shrinking in every life. And that's why they say Shreyan Sarmo Viguna Pardharma Swadharme Nidanam Shreya Pardharmo Bhayavaha, which means don't try to take up activities of someone else, because then you're creating a new set of karmas or vasanas which have to be burned in the next life. So more lives that will be needed, more misery cycles of Janm, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, birth, death, disease and old age. So to kind of summarize, my friends, yoga is the practice of ending the cyclical misery of Janm, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi by the practice of sannyasa, giving up desires prior to action, and samata, which is breakage from the success and failure while doing the action, and tyaga, not seeking any fruits of the action. Samta, sannyasa, tyaga create yoga or yunja. Yunja yoga is the union of Atma with Paramatma, and it can be most of the times very clearly started in the realm of Karma Yoga, which is activity of tyaga, giving up any expectations of results while you are doing the right things to do. As you move up the cycle of simplicity to devotional surrender, devotional service, memory absorbed in God, into enlightenment. And for that whole process to occur very clearly, you have to create an erect, non-flickering focus of flame, the flame of Dhyan Yog when you have ascended Karma Yoga, in which case we have to purify the body with the right posture and moderate amount of food and sleep, the oil in the lamp, which is the vishayas or the expectation, the personal sense gratification through the sensual pleasures, the desires, reducing the clutter of desires that we carry, which are the winds that can deviate the flame, and the wick itself, which has to be pure cotton wick of devoid of expectations. The tainting of expectations have to go. When you have the right lamp with the right pure oil and the right wick and no air flowing, then the flame burns bright and erect, and then you can attain Dhyan Yoga. Hope you like this video. Please leave your comments below. Thank you.